Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us. We are back. It's another week. It's another show. We're going to fix a dive into the Kentucky political news of the week with a focus on voting. Then we're going to cover the GROSSberg story because I feel like we should, because it is a Kentucky political news story, gross indeed. Then we got a call to action to do something between now and November with a very specific thing you can do soon. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you're here and you're ready and you want to help turn Kentucky purple because we know that it's time for Kentucky to do better, right? We deserve better than Mitch McConnell, than Jamie Comer, than Big Bank's Andy Barr, the GOP supermajorities in the General Assembly, which block our governor time and again from moving Kentucky forward. We're very excited because tonight on the show, we've got two people who have thrown their hats in the ring to do something about that. We're very, very glad to be joined by Kiana Fields, who is running for state senate. And we're checking back in with Erin Marshall, who is running against Jamie Comer in the 1st District of Kentucky. So great folks who are doing important work to expand the range of appropriate and acceptable electoral outcomes for our great Commonwealth. So excited to hear about their campaigns and what they're doing and how we can help them out. So, we got to do better, and it's going to take a lot of work to make that happen. I hope you can help by either helping these candidates, helping the campaigns. Maybe you could support Progress Kentucky. We have a secure online website. If you act blue today, help us turn Kentucky purple tomorrow or down the road. It's going to be a slog. It's going to take time. It's going to take a commitment. We're not going to get there this November 5th, unfortunately, but there's a lot we can do in the next 41 days to make things better in Frankfurt and in Washington, D.C. And I hope you help out. So let's go ahead and check in with our co-hosts. Once you go ahead and hit that Act Blue website, make a donation, $5, $50, $500. It all adds up for sure. But yeah, let us know who you are, where you are, and what are you protesting today. So, and if you're watching on the internet now live, we'd love to hear what you're protesting and where you're watching. So I'm Erin. I am coming to you today from a work trip in Detroit, Michigan. And my protest sign says, if you don't vote, you can't complain. It is a tired statement, but it's totally true. And I know people like to complain. So let's get out there and vote. And let's check in with our co-host, Nema. Nema, you there?
Hello, Erin. Yes, I'm coming from the lovely Kenwood area, as we like to call the wood, and over here in lovely Lexington, Kentucky. And my sign today says, of course, since we're talking about voting, vote no on Amendment 2. And, just to give you guys a quick heads up, I'm sure we'll talk about Amendment 2 again, Erin, as we talk about voting. But we are, the AFT and also Kentuckians for the Commonwealth are hosting a town hall forum tomorrow night, 7 to 9 at the Lyric Theater downtown. And we're going to be giving away free books to kids again for any kid that comes in or any family that wants some free books. We're going to also provide those. But more importantly, the Lieutenant Governor will be speaking. We will have members of the community that are up, community leaders. And it's a really good way to find out what you really, really, really want to know about Amendment 2. And we're hoping that people show up, bring their kids, bring a friend, and really let's talk about what's really, really scary about this amendment. So that is tomorrow night here in Lexington at the Lyric Theater, 7 to 9. Would love to have everybody come out.
Nice. We just shared the Facebook event in the chat, so feel free to click on that. Get all the details. If your brain is like mine, you immediately forget things that Nema just said. Go ahead and put it on the Facebooks. But yeah, that's awesome. That's a great event. I hope it goes well. Obviously, the Lieutenant Governor is a rock star. Big fan. Actually, I was here earlier today. I met the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, Garland Gilchrist,
yes,
who is totally also a rock star. There's a lot of good lieutenant governors around.
Well, I have a total woman crush on Gretchen Whitmer. I think most women do in this country. She's a badass. So I am a little bit disappointed that I'm not in Detroit as well to soak in the Gretchen vibe. Yeah.
The big Gretch. They call her Big Gretch, but when she stands next to Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, she looks very little Gretch because he's like one of the tallest men I've ever seen. Yeah,
well, even though our lieutenant governor makes her look like, like Jacqueline looks like a giant next to Gretchen. So, yeah.
But he had nothing but amazing things to say about our lieutenant governor. So he's started up her fan club, the Michigan chapter, at least. I think
people are paying attention to Kentucky, Erin. I'm just going to be honest. I think that we've made a little bit of noise the last couple of cycles with our governor, and I think that people are starting to wonder what's going on. So
no, we showed up on abortion and did the right thing to reject the OG Amendment 2, and now getting the governor back in there with a pretty strong showing. I think people are. Yeah, you're right. People are taking notice. There's like some interesting things happening. I don't think we're in the conversation for the next Georgia yet.
No.
There's work to be done, but we can, let's do the work. Why not, right?
That's right. Yeah, why not us, right?
All right, so we got some cool stuff we want to cover before we bring our amazing guests on. So I am just going to let you know that it is time to make a plan to vote. We've got 41 days to go, unless you're thinking about voting early. So more on that in a minute. You should check your voter registration. That's a good starting point. Just check your registration. I cannot imagine that we have people in this audience that are not, registered voters.
I would hope not, but
but you've got friends. We've all got friends who probably maybe are, or like nephews or nieces, or like some folks in our circles who need to hear that message and get out there and vote. So get your friends and family registered by October 7th. That's the last day to register in order to vote in the November 5th election. So October 7th is the day. In-person excused early voting is on October 23rd, 24th, 25th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. That's excused early voting. That's somebody who is a Kentucky resident who will not be home on election day. If you're on military duty, if you or your partner will have surgery on election day, you can do that. Early voting registration cannot be done the same day the person is voting. So any voter who wants to participate must register before the general registration deadline. In-person, no excuse voting. That's like you can just vote early because you want to vote early. Get it out of the way. That's Halloween, October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. That's when you can do no excuse in-person early voting, and that's you go to your county kind of courthouse to do that stuff. You can also request a mail-in or an absentee ballot through the State Board of Elections. According to the website, the portal will be open September 21st until October 22nd to request that. And then those ballots can be returned in person or at a drop box at the designated polling location. So for people who are mailing your absentee ballot or dropping it off, those ballots must be received by 6 p.m. on election day of November 5th, right? So, if you're mailing it in, just give yourself plenty of time to make sure that the post office gets it done, and gets it to where it needs to be, right? So, that's the rules. That's the, we don't have as much early voting as I wish we did, no excuse early voting, but if people like to mail in, that's an option. Or if you've got an excuse, you got a few more days to do that early voting. But make a plan, and make a plan and stick to it and make sure you show up because your vote is your voice. And we got lots of things to say here in Kentucky about what's happening on this ballot. So, Nema, what you got plans to vote? You know how you're doing it?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea that you're telling people to go ahead and make your plan. Like I was just sitting here thinking, I normally like to vote on election day, but I might go ahead and take advantage of the no reason to early voter, just because, you never know. I could drop over dead with a heart attack and not get to vote. And I really want my vote to count. So these are the things that I think about. Maybe
I don't know if you're dead by election day, if your vote still counts. I don't know.
What are they going to do? I mean, I was alive when I cast it, right? I don't know. I don't want to test it out.
No,
I'm just saying that what if I break my leg? What if I'm in a car accident? Yeah. What if I'm in a coma?
So if you're planning ahead and you know about a surgery, but what if there's an accident? So
yes. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But let's talk about turnout since we're talking about. There's my husband back there, by the way. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about turnout. last election, 2023's re-election of Andy and Jacqueline, and a bunch of terrible GOP constitutional officers, voter turnout was just 38% compared to the 2022 midterms, which was Rand Paul's re-election against the challenger, Charles Booker, and that was at 42%. 2020 voters across the nation elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Kentucky turnout was record-setting with over 2 million voters turning out for the first time ever, and 64% of voters showing up. Back in 2019, Andy and Jacqueline's original election saw a 44% turnout. Bevin versus Bashir drove decent off-year turnout, and in 2018's midterms, 47% of voters turned out. Trump's win in 2016, 59% of Kentucky voters showed up. So I think I would like to just throw in, before we talk any further about this, on how critical it is to vote in just because it's a presidential election year doesn't mean you vote and then not vote again until another presidential election year, because our local and our state races are so important, y'all. I've been screaming this for like a year now. I know Erin and Nate are trying to be done with me over this whole conversation, but I'm saying we are in the position we are in now with Amendment 2 because of the people that we put in office, because we didn't show up to vote because it wasn't a presidential election year. So there's my pitch.
I think it's a good one. I completely 100% concur. Yeah, like it's like shameful that like our turnout for like a national election, because there's a president, decision being made, is like 20 points lower or more than in like when we select our governor, right? I think it's and Kentucky is not a swing state. It's not like we're going to see a bunch of ads for Trump or Kamala, right? So like I would argue that it's like it's almost less important, but there's lots of important stuff on the ballot all the time. Show up and vote. Be a chronic voter. Don't
be an informed voter. Don't just read ads, like watch ads on TV and read the mailers that you get and say, oh, that's it, because we've been seeing some real deceitful messaging coming out from the pro Amendment 2 people. It's actually quite shameful, and shame on them. I mean, they're basically promising every Kentuckian that has a kid or not a kid in public schools a pony and a lifetime supply of cotton candy. I'm not really sure what else they're going to throw in here, but let me be clear. Teachers will not get a raise if Amendment 2 passes. Teachers will not get a raise. Your children that have a 504 or an IEP, they will not be allowed in these schools or will be sent back. Now, what's that problem? The problem is if the money follows the child, the way we are funded in this state, the money is with how many kids are enrolled, not how many, whatever. So that's how everything is. Staff allocation, any special programs, any of that is all based on how many students we serve in each public school, in the districts and in the buildings. So when you take away one kid's funding and you put it into a private school in Louisville or here in Lexington or, in the Golden Triangle, what happens is that money follows that child if Amendment 2 passes, which means if that child, for some reason, decides this school's not working out for me, or if the school decides it's not working out, that money does not go back to the public school, even though the child does.
Ew.
So that is an issue that could cause serious overcrowding, understaffing. We're looking at a lot of issues that could come about this. So I'm off my soapbox now.
For now. Yeah, that's a legit soapbox. Like, that's why we created the show, so we could have a soapbox. Let's be honest, right? So always welcome. Yeah, and I think we want to just do a quick check-in, see what people think about voting, right? I think those statistics are eye-opening and a little wow, really? Less than half of voters show up and get to decide who's in charge in our state. That's sad, right? It should be
yeah. Who's the highest turnout though?
Who is the highest turnout? I'm gonna guess Republicans. I'm pretty sure Republicans vote like it's their job, whereas Democrats are a little more maybe I will if I'm inspired
I just
by
don't
my
like
heart.
those shoes. Can't deal with those shoes that she's wearing. I'm gonna have to not vote.
Yeah. So I think likely GOP is the highest turnout.
Correct.
And then, I think it's not the young GOP, because who are those freaks? And it's, I'm gonna go with older people generally.
So it's old white men. I'm guessing because it says old male Republicans. So
Yeah.
they're 20 points higher than the overall numbers, and 3.5% higher than old male Democrats. So my dad's an old male Democrat. He'll be voting. I hope, if you're a Democrat and your dad's a Democrat and he's aging, get him out there. Take him to the polls. Let's do this. Now, who's the lowest turnout?
I think it's probably, well, it's not the opposite, right? Because I think, but I think young people do not turn out generally very well, right? So lowest turnout is going to be the young. And I don't know, like party wise, I mean, I would like, again, I would just guess the Republicans maybe, because who are young Republicans? Those are weird people. I don't know, but maybe it's
Aaron.
what's that?
I said they exist.
They're out there. I know.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I know. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know. I understand. I don't understand this younger people not voting, because when I was growing up, it was like your responsibility. Like you did not vote in my house growing up. And I think that is something that as parents, as older, as older Gen Xers or in the middle of the Gen X things, we need to do a better job of talking to our kids. And even if you've got grandbabies, I know some people that got grandbabies, you got to start talking about that early and why it's important. Because if not, we are in trouble in this Commonwealth. But we have some bright young activists, advocates, but we've got to give them space, and we've got to help them with talking to our own kids about the importance of voting.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, who's the lowest turnout?
It was males, young males. I don't have a party, but it says other. It says young male other has
you're not a party. So
yes,
like if you're not a Democrat or a Republican, others.
Yes, and that's turnout 17 to 24-year-olds with only 12.5% turnout. Now imagine, these are things that are going to affect you as a young adult 10 years from now. They might not affect you today. In 10 years, they will. Yeah. And that's what we have to start telling. Like it might take it might take 10 years, it might take 15 years, but you're going to feel it, and you're going to know that it's probably your government, like that you did not participate in.
So being here in Detroit for this conference, the election comes up from time to time. You're in Michigan, one of the most important states. I was talking to a guy who actually is Australian, and they have compulsory voting. You have to pay a fine if you do not vote. And their turnout is high 90%, because who wants to pay the $70 fine? I don't know if it's $1, whatever it is in Australia. Yeah. I've never used the currency. I don't know what it's called.
No, I don't know what it's called either. But I mean, it is a right. I mean, people died and fought for this right.
Yeah.
And as a woman, I always vote. Period. Because I respect those who fought for the ability to do so.
Yeah, 100%. So we've gone a little long, which
sorry,
it tends to happen. But I did want to I don't want to do it, but I feel like we got to do it. Like we talked a little bit about the GROSSberg story. So Daniel GROSSberg obviously has been accused of lots of inappropriate behavior with women, just really sketchy stuff. Turns out he's also got a lifetime ban from a strip club, offered a dancer money to sleep with him, allegedly. And it's nasty. Now the governor has encouraged him to step down. The Senate Democrats have encouraged him to step down. I think, young Republicans have called on him to step down. And he, is actually maintaining that he's going to get some counseling for his, poor judgment. I don't know. And staying off. It's just, guy, you gotta go. You gotta go. This is not behavior that is befitting any public servant. And, I think it's just time for him to leave. So,
yeah. Yes, exactly what you said, Erin. It's just one of those things, that's just, yeah. That's all.
It's like one of ours, and I feel bad about it. But like, just because you're a Democrat does not mean you're a perfect human, right? And
right. Now, I do think that that's one of the things that we take a hit on a lot is that we're quick to call out the issues and behaviors of people in the GOP, but yet we all go silent when it's our own party. And that happens with the Democrats and the Republicans. I mean, we see it. Corey DeAngelis, the voucher guy, just got busted for being in gay porn, and he's gone completely silent. Nobody said anything about it on the far right. And I'm like this, like Josh Calloway, who loves to talk about porn, right? He's not even said anything, and he's probably retweeted it and everything else. So it's like, no, if we are going to do better by women in this country, then we have to call it out no matter what the party is.
Yeah.
And Democrats need to wake up and we need to start doing a better job.
And Nate put in the chat, the counterpoint being Senator Al Franken, who was, who resigned because of inappropriate jokes, photo. I don't, there were some women who stepped forward and thought he was like inappropriate with them, right? And is it a counterpoint? I don't know if it is. I'll be honest. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think we should protect guys from being creeps. And if they're in office, we should hold them to a high standard. And I love that Al Franken is also politically still active and does a podcast that, probably gets a lot more ear holes than ours. But, it's like, and we like second acts, if like voters like come in and they're like, he wants to run again and they choose him to come back and like, whatever. I'm not going to like shame it, but I really hope he doesn't do other bad things to women, right? Questionable things, we'll say. Anyway, we should get on with our interviews because we're very excited to have with us in the candidate corner, Kiana Fields, who is running for the State Senate District 17. Fantastic district to run in because it is without a representative right now, or a state senator, right? So who is it? Damon Thayer's old district, right? So it's Grant County, Scott County, a little bit of Fayette County, just to crack it enough, and then all the way up to some of Kenton County. That is a long haul.
Yes.
That is a very vertically oriented district. Yeah.
Listen, that's a great way to put it. They did a heck of a job in creating that map, I will say. It is a long district. It is densely populated in some areas and sparsely populated in other areas. It's got urban and rural. It's also smack dab in between two kind of growing populations and then one that is rural and has a lot of opportunity for growth if we just take the time to invest the resources in it. So it's quite the district, y'all. Let me tell you. It's quite the district.
My hunch, Kiana, is that it was not drawn to make your life easy as a candidate. It was not like, let's make this a competitive place so the best ideas win. But you are running in it, which is amazing. And, kudos for running for the district for sure. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What inspired you to get involved with this process?
Well, they definitely did not make it easy, but adding Fayette County, I think, is that kind of overconfidence because Fayette County has some great areas in it. And I'm excited to see what this district will look like because this will be the first time that we've seen the district in action. And there's a lot of opportunity. I was born and raised here in Scott County. I often joke that I got to grow up alongside Scott County. And so it is home. I have watched my friends leave Kentucky for various reasons, and they have tried to pull me out, but I tell them that my roots run deep in this state. I can trace my family roots back here to Scott County, dating back to the 1840s and sometimes earlier. And so when you have that type of legacy in a county, when you have my grandfather on my mother's side was born in Grant County, on the border of Scott and Grant in Corinth, Kentucky. And so I argue that Georgetown was a little too big for me. And then I went to Center College and I came back to Georgetown just because my family is here. And I decided to run, seeing that it was an open seat and the seat was going to go uncontested, and seeing the governor win Scott County specifically in 2023 was an opportunity that we could not pass up on. We are giving this seat the best chance and a shot at it because it's home. And I firmly believe who can fight for home better than the person that was raised here. So I know the hollers, I know the specialties of Scott County. Scott County is a special place. And I say Scott County quite a bit because that's our anchor county. When we look at where a lot of our votes are coming from, it's Scott County. But I've fallen in love with this district. It's got an amazing group of individuals, but it's worth the fight. That's what I will say.
And so what are you bringing to the fight, Kiana? So like, what's your background? What's your kind of bio? Like what kind of work have you done in the past?
Glutton for punishment. I've been in education for almost a decade. So I work in the post-secondary level. So I've worked at small liberal arts colleges. I've worked at a large university. And so one of the reasons why I was kind of debating July 3rd, 2024 will always be one thing that's going to be the date that sits in my mind. So the work that I do is technically falls under DEI. So I get to do health equity research. And so July 3rd, it was 6 p.m. If that tells you how big of a date this was, I was debating on, do I run? Do I not? And so I got a text message in my group chat that says that SB 6 had been filed. Now this SB 6 came before HB 9. And so that for me was the precipice of saying, I can no longer be as effective as I need to be as an educator trying to help health outcomes in this state, given the legislative process that is coming down the line. I have no choice but to get out of the classroom and to get out of the office and to get out of, I love being in community. That's one of my specialties, is being able to bridge across differences, bringing consensus together. I have a master's degree in human resources and organizational development. Looking at systems is my whole job. And I could no longer do that effectively. And so that for me has been the ride, is that I get to bring the skill set that they would like to ban into this race. And I can tell you that having my skill set is an asset. The patience that I have developed over almost a decade of doing this work is desperately needed in our Senate. And so it has been incredible being able to have that skill set, and it's a value add. And I know without a doubt that I am fighting the good fight on behalf of the students that I work with, on behalf of my colleagues who have put in a lot of work for this state.
Wow. I mean, that's a really powerful story to just, know that the work you do academically is very much in the crosshairs, and that they kind of went after, not you personally, but you professionally, right? And that's, I think, a really powerful motivator. Obviously got you to do a thing that, I don't know, had you thought about running for office before? Like,
I had thought about it, and, it's never the right time to do it. I wanted to make sure that I had all of my ducks in a row. And I saw my mom, who is the head of the Scott County Democratic Party. She was actually one of the last people to know that I was going to run. My family jokes that when I've set my mind to do something, I do it and tell them later. She knew that I was thinking about it, especially when we saw that the seat was going to go uncontested. So I had thought about it, and this was the time of, when do we have an opportunity, specifically on the Senate side, to potentially take back a seat. And it's interesting where Scott County actually has 2 open seats. We also have a House seat because Representative Pratt is stepping down. And I don't know if you know anything about Representative Pratt, but he is the one that proposed the child labor laws. And so good things still come out of Scott County. I can reassure you, they do. They absolutely do. But I'm also an Emerge alum. And so this past year, I graduated from the Emerge program, which was an absolute godsend.
Awesome. Yeah, we had the Emerge Blair on from Emerge talking about the program. We've had a lot of Emerge graduates on our campaign candidate corner. So yeah, that's awesome. How can people help you out in your fight to win the 17th?
Yes. So one of the things that is super important is that if folks can volunteer, whether that is knocking on some doors, phone banking, that would be greatly appreciated. We have a couple of events coming up as well, just in case folks are like, I would really like to hear a little bit more about what this woman is about. So October 1st is kind of a meet and greet at the Scott County Library with all of the candidates who are running in Scott County. October 8th is kind of a big day in Scott County. We have an amendment to information session with the lieutenant governor, and then I have a meet and greet directly after that. So we are alongside the fight and trying to make sure that Amendment 2 is not passed, because we have a lot to lose within this district. The whole state does. And what most people don't understand is that what happens in the K through 12 arena also impacts what happens in our colleges and universities, which ultimately impacts our workforce. So this has a long-term effect that, as an educator who gets to see things on the post-secondary level and gets to research it and see that there are policies that are better than what is being proposed to actually address education, this is something that is a passion.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's like super important. So I would ask you what you thought about our profiles in Courage last week, when these presidents of universities showed up to basically back off of DEI and like not talk about it at all, and change the name of their programs or close their offices. But
and if I could just say something to that piece of just being in the nitty gritty, is that one of the things that a lot of presidents, and of course I'm speaking as a private citizen, I have to say that, is that it's the personal cost that folks are not talking about, both from the student, faculty, and staff side, where we're talking about folks who are deeply dedicated to helping students across the board from different incomes, backgrounds, demographics, helping them to reach self-actualization, often at a personal, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. And we have lost the human cost of this, and we have gone down a rabbit hole instead of looking at the benefits of what our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion has brought to this state, and what will happen when they attempt to push it out of this state. Because those folks that are committed, like myself, to making sure that people have the resources that they need to be successful, the work will not stop. What's going to be harmful is that a lot of folks are going to continue to be traumatized by our systems, because we want to go down a rabbit hole and waste taxpayer dollars on things that do not matter. And most Kentuckians are not worried about this. They're worried about, can they live?
Yeah. Total distraction, right? But it takes up a lot of bandwidth on the other side of the aisle. Like Dan Cameron's got a whole organization that's focused on rolling that stuff back. So appreciate you running. I did want to announce to the world and all of our viewers and listeners, we have endorsed you for your race. You filled out our candidate survey. I hope it didn't take you too long. It's literally 4 questions, but you answered them all 100% correct. You're going to fight for abortion rights. You're going to fight for the environment. You're going to fight for public education and oppose Amendment 2, and also fight with our governor, not against our governor.
Correct. To create policies that actually positively impact the everyday people, right? We've got to focus on policing the problems and opportunities that we have in our state. That is what people are hungry for. And that's what I'm hearing on the doors, is that folks want to be able to afford to live in their hometowns. They want to afford housing. They want to afford to feed their families and healthcare. It's really quite simple, but I'm learning that not everyone sees it that way.
Yeah. Well, good luck on the doors. I hope folks check out your website, go volunteer, maybe make a contribution, help you out with your campaign. But thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you all so much. Y'all have a good evening.
Awesome. You too. All right. So now we're going to roll into our next interview. We got 2 candidates. Like I said, I promised earlier, we're going to bring as many candidates to you between now and the election, so voters can make decisions, so candidates can tell their story, and so we can elevate cool folks who are running for office for the right reasons and would do a great job if we put them into office. So next, we're going to check back in with Erin Marshall. Erin, how are you?
Erin, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I love getting you on the show, because every time I do, it pulls up my chat history where I was trying to recruit you to come do doors with me for Andy. It's this is thing that's come full circle, and your long-term kind of history and commitment to being a strong Democrat and fighting for our values and doing the right thing for our Commonwealth is it's a very long history for such I'll just say it, relatively young person, and it's pretty awesome and pretty inspiring. So how is the campaign treating you?
It's good. It's great. I am every day I'm inspired. I know it feels like just yesterday we were back here talking, but I think it's been several months now.
Yes.
To go on a quick aside, let's talk about doors for a second, because I have a story about that. So when I knocked for you, Erin, this has obviously been several years, but my son is still young. I think at the time can't even do math, 2, maybe 2. And we've taken him out several times. You all were talking earlier about how important it is to share these messages with our children. And my son is obviously part of why I'm running. So he's very familiar with knocking doors. And earlier this year, I was out on an event and I had to tell him I wasn't going to be able to pick him up from school that day. And he said, "Hey, Mommy, what happens if you don't win and Kamala Harris doesn't win? What happens if Donald Trump becomes the president?" And so we had a conversation about that. And he said, "Mommy, I'm scared for families like ours. And when we go out and knock doors next time, I want you to let me talk about it." And granted, he's 5. So I'm really interested to see what his version of that would be. But these conversations are important to have with our children, and they're listening and paying attention. And so I just wanted to share that really quickly.
Oh yeah, no, so powerful, right? You're such an amazing example you are providing for him. And it's just I don't know. I think there's such casual misogyny and racism in this political conversation, right? And you've got one side that is just doubling down on racist tropes, and it is ugly. And I think people learn from this. And if you're in that party, you're probably not watching this show. But if you know folks who are talking smack about Kamala in ways that are ugly and are impugning her work ethic or ability to get where she got by her own skill and intelligence and hard work, right? Because that's, I think, a lot of what's happening, right? Is how people disparage her. You were sending messages, right, to people who are in your in your orbit. And I just hope that if you don't like her policies, that's great, and describe what you don't like about her policies, and talk about why you think abortion should be illegal for all women in all cases, but don't just hate on her because she's a woman and because she's biracial and she's come on, people, we can do better than that for sure. So anyway,
little aside there, but
what's Jamie Comer's latest insult? You were running against such a clown. And he gives consistent and constant reasons to not vote for him and not support him. What's the most recent stuff from your perspective? I know you shouldn't really focus on him and talk about him, but it's a little bit meat for the base on this one, right?
No, I was talking to a group of retirees this morning. I just got the endorsement of Alliance for Retired Americans, and we were talking through some of these issues, right? When we're thinking about the district and what he's done for the district, I can't name a single group of people that he's passed or pushed for legislations that would help, whether it's farmers, retirees, women, young voters. I don't know who that would be. Every day we're getting more fodder and stuff that's being pushed out because of this oversight committee. I know that they announced some new stuff today. It's constant. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars from a party that says that they believe in small government and they want to save taxpayer money. What a waste and what a shame. And if you want to make a name for yourself, this isn't the way to do it. The way to do it is by all the wonderful things that you bring back home to your district. And like you said, I don't want to spend time talking about him. We know the bad things about him. And obviously my goal is to do the exact opposite. I got into this race because I have a deep love of public service. I did not see myself running for office myself. Erin, you talked about my door knocking. I'm a former field organizer. That was what I loved. And my life changed pretty dramatically in 2018 when I had an unexpected pregnancy with the possibility for complications. And I got the healthcare I needed. But obviously women in Kentucky, we don't have that right anymore. And so that drew me back into this sphere because Kentuckians need a choice of who is representing them. And we need someone who's willing to fight for us and fight these really hard battles that affect people every day. And that we oftentimes feel like are being neglected, right? So many times we hear people talk about the fact that they don't feel represented by the people that they've elected. They don't feel like that person's values match up for theirs and that they're fighting for them anymore. And so it is my goal to do that. We have to elect more people that live lives like we live. Because I am a mom and that's such a huge part of my identity, I'll just put out a couple of facts that I think are really telling of who we've elected currently. There are only 37 mothers of minor children in Congress and only 1% mothers of children 5 and under. And that is incredibly concerning. That is such a huge part of the population that is being incredibly negatively affected by the Republican agenda. They're pushing for controls around things like IVF and women's health care. And then we're talking about education and the ability for people to find childcare. All of these issues are hugely important, and it's a hugely underserved population. And we have to do a better job of electing people that live the same lives that we live and are fighting these battles at home every day. And so I'm hoping to do that. That's why I got into this. And I hope that people see that. And I love having conversations like this.
Well, we love having you on. I love hearing your story. It's super inspiring. Nema, do you have any questions for Erin?
Yeah, I was just, when you were talking, Erin, I don't think we've ever met. Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah.
When you were talking, I was thinking about this. It was on BritBox. And it was a documentary that I watched where this woman from England came over and interviewed a bunch of women here in the country that are basic. Sorry about that. That was the corgi. Yeah. But it was really interesting because what it did is she came over and was talking to these far right women and how, there's a lot of these women that are making a name for themselves by being very gross to other women and on women's issues. And I wonder if you've encountered anything in your campaign so far where people are kind of like, oh, you're just a feminazi or you're this, or, I'm wondering how it feels to be a young woman running for a federal seat in Kentucky, and just what you've encountered when you've been at the doors. Have you had any problems from people being like, oh, my husband tells me how to vote, or, I'm really curious because we hear that. We hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to try to say this in the best way possible. Because I have had women come up to me and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with my husband knowing I'm supporting you. And I don't want to betray that confidence that they've given me. But yeah, no, that is something that I have heard. I heard it in 2016 when I was working for Hillary Clinton all the time. I don't feel like I hear it as much anymore. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, I think that unfortunately, because we have lost so many rights, we have become more open about talking about these stories, and it is more normalized. I honestly don't feel odd at all talking about my reproductive history, but pre-2016, I might have. It would have been a very different situation.
Yeah.
So I think it's much more normalized now. So I don't typically hear from women that have really aggressively odd things to say to me. And I think I do try to approach it in a different way. I think my story, it shouldn't be this way, but my story sometimes is more palatable to women that are coming at choice from a different direction. I chose to have my son, but it was a choice. And I try to talk through it that way. and remind them that it is a healthcare decision. And just because we're giving someone a choice doesn't mean that they're always going to choose one way or the other. It's choosing what works best for their health and their family, and trying to approach it in that way and have more of a dialogue. And I try to do that with a lot of things, because I come from a family of mixed supporters. I've got some Donald Trump supporters. My dad is a Donald Trump supporter. I've got some Democrats, I know. And so I've learned how to have some of these conversations with them where we can talk through civilly some issues that we disagree on, and try to have more of an in-depth conversation as to why. I think that it is so hard to have those conversations, but they are so important if you're safe and comfortable doing it. And I'm lucky in that I am. But oftentimes, if we can break it down that way, I do think that there's room to remind people that these are human issues that affect people's health and lives. And it becomes so much harder to ignore it and to think about it from a hardline stance when you're seeing how it affects someone's day to day.
Totally.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. It's something that we've got to do as women, as we've got to talk about these things that have always been deeply private. And it's unfortunate, but for my daughter, it's necessary because, she's 16. So I absolutely get it. And I appreciate you putting yourself out there, because that's one of the things that too many people are afraid to do anymore, to even say they're a Democrat. So thank you for putting yourself out there. Very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I do think that things have changed remarkably since 2016. I remember working for Amy McGrath's campaign in 2018, and we were afraid to talk about abortion.
Yeah.
Right. And we're let's just avoid it. And she's Catholic, and, she's personally pro-life, but supports people's, ability to have a choice. Right. But they just didn't want to go there because the expectation was it was going to hurt her. Right. And I think, even Amendment 2 was before Roe fell. Is that right? No, that's wrong. No, they put it on the ballot before Roe fell, and then Roe fell, and then that didn't work out for us. But yeah, so I do think that it was such a turning point in the conversation, right? Because this right that had been there for 50 years is now gone, and you're oh crap, what do we do about it now? And I guess we better talk about it because we got to fight for it. But before, I think Democrats were afraid to bring it up, especially in Kentucky. But we've shown that it's a really powerful motivator and a very powerful, important right to fight for. And so I'm glad you've centered it in your campaign. I'm sure that it's clever in a few ways. I'm sorry to say, the choice issue, people deserve a choice in District 1 for sure. And Jamie Comer is just a problem. It's just a problem. So what can we do for you? How is the campaign going? Anything that we need to you want to elevate right now? Or, do you need volunteers? Do you need donations? Do you need both of those things? Do you need
what don't we need at this point? Right. It is a huge district. You and Kiana talked about her district and how wild it is. I can definitely relate to that struggle.
Yeah, hers at least is straight. Yours is this very weird shape.
Yeah, after having done that drive many times, I can tell you it's weird. I'm assuming most of your viewers know what that looks like. If you don't, do yourself a favor, pull it up on a map. It's funny and not funny and how bad it is. But because of that, there's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of people to talk to and to reach out to. So everything is needed. Once again, I'm a field organizer. So, I know that people, they give their time, their money, they give in ways that work best for them. Not everybody can volunteer. Not everybody can give money, but we can find a place for you somewhere. So if you want to find a way to get involved, money is great. We have a lot of advertising to do. 5 media markets, people.
Oh,
yeah, crazy. 5 media markets and a lot of ground to cover. So thanks for putting the link in there. We definitely also need people knocking doors. I can't do it all myself. So there's a place to go on the website and sign up for the newsletter and to get involved. And I would love to see some beautiful new faces helping us out.
Yeah, buy Erin a tank of gas because it takes a lot of driving.
That's a great way to sell it. Yeah. Yeah. Help me fuel my American-made vehicle.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks because, again, this is it's an uphill battle. I think safe to say. This is not a district that was drawn so that Jamie Comer would, be in a competitive spot. That's not how democracy works right now. Unfortunately, whoever has control and the maps are being drawn, draws them for their power and to maintain their power. And so this is one that I think he will regret including the little Comer hook there to get his farm in the district, because I think you're making his life a lot harder than he wanted it to be. But yeah, thank you for doing the work, because it's really important that we run for these races, and it's really important that we challenge these horrible politicians on what they've been doing against their district. So.
I appreciate that. And I will say, I'm going to push back a little bit on that. I think that there's hope. We see this and we forget that the governor got 44% in the district. Old Amendment 2, 43% voted no. And so we are seeing movement there, and we haven't had a competitive candidate run against him. And we have to put in the work cycle after cycle. We're going to see gains. And so I beg of people not to think of it the way that I think Republicans would like us to think of this district.
Yeah. Do not write this off, for sure. And you're bringing a unique energy and a great challenge to a guy that needs desperately to be challenged. Awesome. Well, again, thanks for all you do. Folks, check out our website. Really, if you missed the launch video, watch it. Super powerful. And tells just a really compelling story. And so, yeah, buy Erin a tank of gas or go knock some doors.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. See ya. Yeah. So I think we're going to do a quick call to action. And wrap up the show.
All right. You want me to handle it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Well, you go ahead. I'm going to remind about the town hall.
We should definitely remind people of the town hall. Tell us about the town hall again.
I'm just saying, tomorrow night, Lyric Theater, 7 to 9 here in Lexington. All counties are welcome. This is not just an AFT member-only event. Come hear about Amendment 2 from Jacqueline Coleman. Sherilyn Stevenson will also be there. We're blessed to have Pastor Richard Gaines, who's going to also speak on behalf of some folks. And we're going to be giving away free books. It's what we do in AFT. We give away books. This will be probably our 50th. Let's see, 50,000 books that we've given away since we have been building and active over the last 2 years in Fayette County. So we're pretty proud of that. Walking the walk and talking the talk. So please come out and join us. Erin, that means you. That means Nate. That means everybody. And we'd love to see you guys.
Yeah, I would. I am on a plane, so it'll not.
Yes, I forgot you're in Gretchen land. I forgot.
Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, folks should come out Thursday night, depending on when you're listening to the podcast, when you're watching watching the replay. But Thursday night, go and check it out at the Lyric Theater. And then, if for whatever reason you're listening to this after that, you can still help out the campaign to stop Amendment 2. We are recruiting folks right now to come knock doors with us to tell the story about Amendment 2 and also the lawmakers that brought you Amendment 2 and why we need to get rid of a bunch of those folks and hold Sherilyn's district because, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, and Adam Moore's district. That's where we're going to focus our time and energy. Flip a district, hold a district. They're both endorsed candidates by Progress Kentucky, as is Erin. I forgot to mention that Erin Marshall has also been endorsed by Progress Kentucky because she filled out the form and filled out the answers correctly and is fighting for all the right stuff, and it'll be a great representative. So Sherilyn, Adam, all these fantastic folks, we really want to make sure that they get into office, and we can do everything in our power to help them make that happen. So while again fighting back on Amendment 2. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Can you maybe close out the show?
Yeah, you want me to close it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and do it. Look at us, Erin. We're just having a good time. Yeah.
Although warning, I didn't actually update some of that stuff. So,
Oh, crap. Okay, here we go. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Next week's show, I don't know, he's changing it right now. But we're very excited because Josh Cowan author, The Privateers, How Billionaires Created a Culture War and Sold School Vouchers, will be on the show. That's going to be really interesting. I'm going to make sure to tune in for that one. Let's see. Production of episode 179 was by Nate Orshan, right? Orshan. And of course, he wrote and performed our theme song. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. And our logo and some graphic content are provided by Couchfire Media. That's it. We're out. I think that's all. And y'all have a great week. See you at the town hall, hopefully tomorrow.